Thank you, fellas.
When we talk about Pat Quinn, one memory that jumps out, one thought, like when you look back at him, something that I'm not defines the man necessarily, but maybe characterizes him.
Well, just his ability to command a room. When Pat spoke, everyone listened. Absolutely everyone. And, to put a personal spin on it, I remember traveling with the Toronto Maple Leafs as part of a media entourage when the Leafs had training camp in Stockholm, Sweden a number of years ago. And, the time that collectively we spent, Pat Quinn, Bill Waters, the coaching staff, everyone involved with the organization, after hours and listening to his stories that would stretch back to his playing days. Obviously, some of the tough experiences back in an era where, the game was played differently, obviously differently, and then extending that into coaching and managing. He was one of those individuals, guys, that you could just literally sit and listen to for hours. And, he commanded respect, but not in a mean-spirited or, a tough sort of way. It was just who he was. The aura about him, from how well dressed he was to, the mammoth size of the man that he was. But the fact that you knew that if it were you, anyone within the organization, anyone around the community of the National Hockey League that needed a hand, Pat was one of the first guys to lend that hand. He was just an all-around great man.
Darren Dreger from TSN Hockey is with us. We're talking about Pat Quinn, who has passed away. You mentioned something really important when you get to know him, was that he had the ability to be tough but fair, that there was a basic integrity to the guy, but there was also a gentleness about him. I kind of feel, and Dregs, maybe you can comment on this, but I haven't met a lot of coaches, general managers, or anybody who had his ability to be tough but fair.
Yeah, and there's a balance in that, isn't there? And it's a tricky recipe to find and to then put into practice. And, when you think of today's NHL coach, so much of what they do is tactical. Almost everything they do. These guys spend hours and hours over the course of a day, both at home and at the arena, trying to figure out a way to devise a plan that is going to generate into more wins. How can you increase the level of execution from the playing roster that you have? Well, Pat, he could do that, but that wasn't what made Pat Quinn a very good, if not a great coach. And you talk to some of the players who played with him, the veteran guys who, Pat would walk into that dressing room, either pregame or during an intermission, and he would find a way to motivate by words. He looked for the best character, and he found a way to bring out the best of the character of his players, and that's what puts him in a special category. Of course, he could break the game down. His entire life was committed to the game of hockey in some way, shape, or form, but it was how Pat could motivate that I think put him in a different category.
Hey, Dregs, thanks for your time this morning. Jeff O'Neill, the O-Dog, just walked in. We want to get his thoughts, so we thank you for taking the time, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of conversations to have, so thanks for this.
All right. Cheers to a great man. Thanks, guys.
Darren Dreger of TSN Hockey, as I just mentioned, joining Maddie and I in studio to talk about Pat Quinn, the great general manager, great coach, and had a solid career as well, gone at the age of 71 after a lengthy illness. A man who played for him here in Toronto and had a close personal connection. Jeff O'Neill's with us from Leafs Lunch. Jeff.
I'm giving you a warning right now. This could be difficult to do. So
I understand. Initial thought or even memory that you want to share?
I just remember Pat as... like, he wasn't a systems coach, or he wasn't about laying things out systematically. He was just, all he wanted to do, he was a player's coach, and he took care of his players, and all he wanted in return was hard work, and I don't think that's a whole lot to ask. I'll always remember him walking into the locker room. He was so big back then, and he had those nice suits and the big Irish look in his face, and what he did was he got your attention. It was a presence, and I actually enjoyed my time more, probably with all my coaches, when I was done playing, because there's times where you're not playing well and you're in the coach's doghouse. One of my favorite memories was in New York City. It was St. Patty's Day, and I was a healthy scratch for about 4 or 5 games, and we played the next night, and practice was over, and I went right from Madison Square Garden across the street to an Irish pub, and then my phone rang, and it was Pat, and he said, "I know exactly where you are. I know exactly what you're doing." He said, "Just keep it to a minimum because you could be playing tomorrow. I just wanted to give you a heads up." And I'll never forget that because he was an Irish guy and I was an Irish guy, and he knew exactly what I was up to, and I was by myself because I didn't want to hang out with my teammates at the time. And I just remember looking at my phone. Imagine being at a pub in New York City, in an Irish pub, and seeing Pat Quinn, coach, calling you on the phone, and he said, listen, he just gave me a little heads up. And I remember after a game in Florida one night, we were all leaving the rink, and we just had a big win. I think we got a big milestone win for Eddie Belfour. And I didn't particularly have a good game. And he pulled me aside on the way out, and he goes, can I talk to you for a second? And I thought, oh, no. Like maybe there was some negative news coming or whatnot. And he said, hey, what's that name of that Irish pub around the corner from the hotel? And I didn't even know the name. I said, I know the one you're talking about. I go, Pat, you got to go somewhere else. That one's not very good. He goes, okay, good to know. So he was just that kind of coach.
Well, he was scouting. He was doing his advanced scouting.
Yeah.
Just a real old school guy. And I'll always remember just the presence, Bob, of him walking in the locker room where it was like, this guy means business and he takes his job ultra seriously, and just what a fun guy to be around. He always, no matter how bad the stretch was, if something stupid happened on the ice in practice, if it was a guy falling down, he would always have a big chuckle on the boards. And he just understood that there's so much pressure in the business that when something lighthearted like that happens, you know, you can have a laugh at it. So it was always good because the players could acknowledge and see that, and it would almost lighten the mood for everybody.
Jeff, we're joined in studio by Jeff O'Neill. You mentioned